We're all familiar with the concept of first aid training, many workplaces requiring a certain number of employees to be trained in first aid. Now the Mental Health Commission of Canada has created a program that teaches first aid for mental health problems. The Commission says the program doesn't teach people how to be therapists, but over the 2-day workshop, trainers share ideas on how to recognize signs of mental health problems and how to provide some initial help. The University of Prince Edward Island has just completed its third session of mental health first aid. Island Morning's Nancy Russell with the story.
What are some symptoms we might see for someone going through psychosis, right? Or symptoms or signs, right? What are things, because we're not diagnosticians, we're not looking to tell somebody, I think you're schizophrenic. That's probably not a great way to start a conversation, is it?
My name is James Redden. I'm a counselor here at U.P.E.I, and I'm also the mental health first aid trainer for our campus. It's 2 days of training for lay people, so for just everyday folks who are curious or care about or realize that they have to interact with people who are sometimes struggling. And the idea is twofold. We want to help increase information about mental health to help reduce stigma. The more you know about something, the less scary it is, the more it's a normal thing that we can all deal with. But also to give them some basic skills to be comfortable interacting, approaching, and offering to help. One thing I hear from a lot of people is, oh, that's a terrible thing. It's hard for people suffering. I want to help, but I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing.
I'm Marva Sweeney-Nixon. I'm a professor here at U.P.E.I. in the Department of Biology and also chair of biology. We have a lot of students, and so really why I thought I would go to the course was to learn more about mental health and about how to help students that are suffering from anxiety about school, anxiety at exams, panic attacks in the middle of an exam. We've had students who have suicidal thoughts. We've had attempted suicides. We've had suicides. Students who have depression. There's a lot of depression. So they start out coming to class and then gradually, less and less, don't come to class. We see it a lot in the winter semester when it's dark more than it's light. So seasonal affective disorder. So there's a range that we see.
With first aid training, you don't become a doctor, but you have the means to respond to a physical injury to preserve life, to provide assistance until professional help arrives, and to comfort somebody who's in distress. Well, when somebody's going through a mental health crisis, they maybe need some of that same stuff. They may need some support until they can get the professional help. They may need some assistance in making some small changes or in feeling better about it so they stop getting worse. And they may need some comfort and support through that difficult period. So actually some of the reasons for physical first aid actually match up with the reasons for mental health first aid.
It was very straightforward in terms of what you do, which is to assess risk of harm, be a really good listener and non-judgmental, and also encouraging them to seek support, so either professional or non-professional, like friends, family, and that sort of thing.
So certainly depression is quite common as an early indicator, the reduced mood, flattened affect, instead of just being sad, just feeling like nothing, the isolation, the feeling like you don't belong, like the others aren't like you.
I think we have a lot of staff people here who see a lot more people, right? We have professors who have classrooms of 200 students at a time. They can't just say, oh, well, those are students, and if they succeed, they succeed. If they fail, they fail. They care about how people are doing. And so they're seeing students struggling with depression, avoiding assignments because of anxiety. We see more people, I think, than a lot of other folks would. And also we're seeing young people. 16 to 24 is the prime age to be diagnosed. So if ever there's going to be an issue in your life, that's probably when it comes up. And here you are dealing with us. So we should be prepared to help you out.
I think people are now getting diagnosed. People are talking about it more, and it's becoming more apparent. I hope it's because they're asking for help when before they didn't.
You know, we also address in the mental health first aid workshop issues like how to deal with psychosis and how to recognize it, substance abuse issues as well. But depression and anxiety are probably at a 10-to-1 ratio, the ones we see most often.
Like I said, I find it's a lot easier to have empathy in these situations if we recognize this person might be really afraid right now. They're not trying to harm me. They're not thinking that they want to hurt me for things, but they're afraid of the situation they're in. What I see is an increase in the severity. We're seeing more people with really chronic depressions, with long-standing psychiatric issues, whose anxiety issues are really interfering not just with their comfort or their level of satisfaction with life, but actually preventing them from participating in school life. So we're seeing more severity in the issues.
Why do you think that increase in severity?
I think part of it is an awareness. People are more willing to say, hey, I'm hurting and I need help. We're starting to remove the stigma. I don't think we're done, but it's starting to happen that people are more willing to say they have difficulties. I think we have a public school system that's doing a better job of supporting students. So whereas some of those students with earlier diagnoses might have been so impaired by their functioning that they could never even dream of coming to university, now they can make it here. But that means that they need that continued support when they're here with us as well. We have a lot of faculty and staff whose questions and concerns are, so how do I do this for my colleagues? If I've got a fellow coworker that I'm worried about, how can I ask them if they need some help? And so we definitely have those discussions as well.
This course has really changed my thinking. As James kept saying yesterday, the brain is an organ of the body, and we know what happens if a blood vessel bursts or if something happens to the heart. The brain is really no different, and we need first aid for the brain. If you believe those stats again, where 1 in 3 people have some sort of mental health issue, it means we're working with them, they're in our families, they're in our community, we're teaching them, we're interacting with them, and it's important that there are as many people that can administer first aid. It can really ultimately save lives and make lives better. So I would highly recommend it.
One of the most impressive pieces of feedback for me is that the first time we offered it, I think we had 17 people sign up for it, and we were beating the bushes to get people to show up. And all of a sudden, within 3 hours of advertising this one, I not only filled this workshop, but I had the next one full, and I had a waiting list for another one. So clearly the demand is increasing, and people think that this is something worth doing. The hope would be to offer it at least 3 times a year. I'd like to keep teaching it until we've got 200 or 300 people on campus at any given time who are comfortable having these discussions.
Changes in appetite, reductions in energy and motivation. Again, matches up some of the depressed symptoms we've seen before, doesn't it?
James Redden is a counselor at U.P.E.I. He is also the mental health first aid trainer for the campus. We also heard from Marva Sweeney-Nixon, who's professor and chair of the biology department, speaking there with Island Morning's Nancy Russell.